Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Joni Ogg, and on behalf of travelprofessionalnews.com, homebasedtravelagent.com, and findahosttravel.com, I would like to welcome all of you to today's webinar. And I do thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join with us here. Now, today's topic is Antarctica Uncovered, expert insights into Scenic's all-inclusive ultra luxury experience. And today we welcome Richard Bravo, who is the Regional Sales Director for the Western US, and David Darden, who is the Manager of Scenic Brand and Consumer Marketing. And we also welcome Jason Flesher, Scenic's Director of Discovery Operations. So with over 40 years of experience in wilderness education, expedition guiding, and search and rescue, Jason has explored all 7 continents, from summiting some of the world's tallest peaks to leading Antarctic expeditions. And he brings unmatched expertise and passion to Scenic Eclipse Discovery team, delivering once-in-a-lifetime adventures in the world's most remote destinations. So folks, just a little housekeeping to remember that you are all muted, but we do, of course, welcome your questions at any time. And you can put those over in the questions area that you see on the right-hand side of the screen there. During the presentation, our friends at Scenic in the background are going to be assisting you by answering your questions independently. We aren't going to do questions at the end of this session because I believe their presentation is going to take our full hour. So just be sure to put your questions in there and they will answer them as we go along, okay? If there are also, so that you know, some valuable handouts that are available to download today. You're going to see those over on the panel that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, noted as handouts. You'll want to make sure during the presentation at some point that you do download those, because once the presentation is over, you won't be able to access those through the system any longer. We have unfortunately been having a few technical difficulties this morning, which of course happens probably after a holiday as well. So I just want you all to know that hopefully the videos will go off without a hitch, and we're going to think positive, but I just want to let y'all know that there have been a few issues with that. So hang in there with us, okay? I'm really excited about this presentation, as I'm sure all of you are today. So I'm just going to turn this over to our speakers. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Joni, thank you so much. Appreciate your intro, the thorough overview of everything. And again, just on behalf of Jason and David and myself, I want to thank everybody. This is Richard Bravo, by the way, speaking. One other tip, in addition to all the information that Joni shared, I would say this is a presentation you don't want to miss the opportunity to take some notes on. I've had a chance to do this previously with Jason, and there is a wealth of information you're not going to want to miss. So just jotting down some of those tidbits that he's going to share along the way, I think will really help you as you're having some of those conversations when you're talking about not just Scenic Eclipse and the polar regions, but specifically Antarctica, and a lot of great information that he's going to be sharing. So again, thank you, Joni, Jason, and David. Happy to have you both with me. Just to kind of share, we're going to kind of try to keep this, kind of casual in the sense of making it a little bit conversational, kind of interview style along the way. But again, some great stories that we're going to be hearing from Jason. Scenic Eclipse, if you're not too familiar with our product yet and just kind of tuning in to learn a little bit more, I will just share a couple of brief things. That these ships are absolutely gorgeous. They are beautiful. It is a perfect combination of luxury and expedition. The ships were truly built for expedition, but they have not sacrificed anything on the side of luxury. Our owner, Glenn Moroney, when he built our first Scenic Eclipse vessel in 2019, made it a point that he really wanted to hit the nail on the head with both of those, on both of those topics too. So he really did achieve that. 2019, the first Scenic Eclipse was built, and then 2023, its sister ship Scenic Eclipse 2 was built. So presently we have 2 ships sailing not only in the polar regions, but really hitting a number of places around the globe. So just kind of wanted to give some of that information. But Jason, you are our guest star today, and so I'll be asking you a few questions. And just starting off with expedition voyages, I think people have an idea of what that is, but maybe you could share a little bit, really just from your perspective, having been to Antarctica in particular over 100 times now.
Yep. No, thank you, Richard. And the difference with Scenic in regards to expeditions is one, the program is totally run by the discovery team themselves, or what many other operators call the expedition team. We call it discovery because the Scenic Eclipses are discovery yachts. And so when we're in the polar regions, whether it's Antarctica, the Arctic, the Kimberleys of Australia, and some other regions around the world, they're so remote that they have to be run by the expedition team, meaning the excursions, the experiences for the guests themselves. There's no towns or villages to do shore excursions, tours, so to speak. So it's on zodiacs, kayaks, paddleboards, the helicopters, the submersibles, and so on, to really give that deep, enriching, engaging experience for the guests when on expedition modes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that too. I think that really kind of helps to kind of explain a little bit more what that is about. And your team, you've assembled an amazing team, and I'm going to let you share a little bit about that, because I know there's a process that you go through in particular, Jason. Certainly skills and all that makes a difference, but you go a lot deeper than that. I'd love for you to be able to share with the audience how you go about that.
Sure. So with the discovery team, they're all literally handpicked, and they come from all over the world. On average, on the ship, the discovery team is made up from 8 to 10 different countries, but they're all professionals in their given field. So we have ornithologists, geologists, glaciologists, historians, marine biologists, and so on. And so not only for the guest experience on the onboard enrichment lectures, where the discovery team does the deep dives into what our guests have seen or about to see, but they're also your guides and zodiac drivers. So being on the zodiac with a geologist or a marine biologist who's your zodiac driver, and having for those guests that enriching experience of what's unfolding right in front of themselves, but also many of other operators, because like you mentioned, I've been down to Antarctica 102 times, and I've worked with other operators, and they hire to fill slots, so to speak. They have a certain slots or positions they have to fill within their expedition teams. But one of the things that I do when we specifically hire is it's not about filling slots, because we can train most people to do anything, but you cannot give somebody a personality. And so we hire specifically for that right personality to create the synergy of a team that becomes so infectious, not only for the team, the ship, but the guests as well. And just by having that really tight, cohesive team with that synergy works so well, and it's so infectious for our guests to experience themselves and have such a wonderful time. So that's why we hand select all our guides for all the voyages.
And that really is one of the elements that contributes in the biggest way to the scenic difference. So great job with that. And I think I may have, there's another question I did want to ask you also too. Yep. Eco-friendly, if you could share a little bit more about that too, and just kind of how, just our consciousness of that when we go to these different regions.
Yeah, it's very important. So Scenic Eclipses were actually the first purposely built expedition cruise ship to go to Antarctica. Pretty much everyone else converted car ferries, tank ferries, and other kind of ships to go to the polar regions, where Eclipse was the first. And one, she is ice class rated, built that way, but also she was built in mind with sustainability, and which is very important. So just a couple quick examples. For instance, ballast water. Every ship has to take on ballast, which is seawater, to balance the ship out. When you're burning fuels, the ship gets lighter, or there's a swell or something's going on and the ship is leaning slightly. So you take on ballast to balance the ship. Well, one of the things we do is when we take on ballast and then you discharge that ballast itself, when you're sailing between different ocean bodies, so for instance, from the Pacific Ocean into the Southern Ocean, we don't want to discharge ballast into a different ocean because there's different organisms that live in the different oceans, even between the Pacific and the Atlantic. So we use infrared to treat the ballast water to neutralize it, so we're not discharging an invasive species from one body of water to another body of water. We also make sure that our gray water system is treated so well that it's actually drinkable. And then another big one is, out of our smokestacks, we can only burn high grade marine diesel, similar, same kind of diesel you would put in your car. We cannot burn any type of marine fuel oil other than diesel, where you see ships sometimes have black smoke coming out of their stacks. And then it's required by many ports, they have to switch over to diesel to have clean, so you're not putting sulfides into the atmosphere. Well, on Eclipse, not only are we burning just clean fuel, we have a triple redundancy scrubber system on our stacks that literally, one, recycles the heat from the stacks, and that's what heats the water on the ship. That's what is part of the HVAC system. But the scrubbers take everything out, that the only thing you see coming out of the stacks is actually just water vapor. That's it. So,
Wow.
we're very environmentally conscious, as well as everything that touches the inside of the ship, the paint on the walls, the fabric, the embroideries, and so on, has to come from a sustainably green company. And we've traveled the world only hiring certified green companies to provide the proper products that go inside the ship itself. And those are only a few of the sustainable things that we created when we were building Eclipse.
And one of the things that I think I recall hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, or please add to it, but talking more on the technology, PC6 rated, that's basically the design of the hull, that it can break through what they call like that first year ice, right, like 1 meter to 1.5 meters thick. Is there anything else that you would add to that, or you can correct me if I was off with that?
No, you're right. With the Polar Class 6 Super 1A ice class rating, meaning she has a reinforced hull, so she can push through ice pretty well. Now, in the polar regions, ice has a rating system. You have first year ice, which is sea ice we're talking about during its celestial winters. For instance, Antarctica actually doubles in size of mass because of the sea ice, how far it extends outside the continent, that it literally doubles. And imagine Antarctica is the second largest continent in the world. And so in the sea ice is about 1 meter to 1.5 meters thick, first year ice, and then you have second year ice, and then you have multi-year ice. So Eclipse can easily push through that first year to 1.5 years ice without a problem, which then allows us to go further and deeper into the polar regions themselves, where many other ships don't have that kind of ice class rating. So they have to just stick to the known areas where the sea ice melts very quickly. But we don't worry about that. So we can get deep into the Weddell Sea or down to Marguerite Bay, way south of the Antarctic Circle, or even where we go to East Antarctica into the Ross Sea, we can get down there pretty easily because of her ice class rating.
Also, with the oversized stabilizers, like the propulsion system, we're going to see video coming up soon on the Ozapod system also. But one thing that I get a lot of oohs and ahs about is when I talk about the fact that we can make it down to the Antarctica Peninsula from Ushuaia in like up to 36 hours on average, and just the value of having that extra time, because weather permitting, we may have something completely planned, it doesn't go as planned, then we have to move to a plan B or plan C, or some others have to move to what's next on the agenda. But there's a number of ways that this technology isn't just for the ship and sailing purposes, but certainly how it contributes to the overall guest experience. Would you have a few other things you can kind of share along those lines?
Yeah, like I said, she was purposely built. So she was also built to cross the Drake Passage as quickly and as stable as possible. So besides her speed, she also has oversized stabilizers that we'll see in a second, that they're 50% larger than any other expedition ship stabilizers and only 30% smaller than the world's largest cruise ships. So she's very stable when it comes to crossing the Drake. And I know a lot of people have that fear of the Drake, but to be honest with you, Richard, you know, crossing the Drake so many times and being down in Antarctica so many times, 85% of my Drake crossings have been pretty smooth, as we call the Drake Lake. Only a few have actually been bouncy and sporty. But Eclipse, because she's so stable, she does really well. 3 to 5 meter swells, you barely notice it. You'll notice a little bit, but you're not holding on to your plates at the dining room table or your glasses or anything. 5, 6, 7 meters, you're feeling it a bit, but still what's amazing is every other ship I've ever been on, the chairs and tables are literally chained to the floor. On Eclipse, we don't do that because we don't need to do that, because people and everything is not sliding all over the place because of her stability. Her Pod system that you see here, what's unique is we don't have rudders. It's an all electric propulsion system, and they turn 360 degrees. And so she's very maneuverable in tight areas, but also this will add to what we call as dynamic positioning that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But let's go ahead and show this video of how the Pods work.
You got it. We'll return in just a second here. So that pretty much allows us to turn on a dime. Would that be correct, Jason?
Pretty much, yes. With the bow thrusters and the Pod system, we literally can turn on a dime without a problem. And some really tight ports that we've been in around the world, without this kind of system, we would never have been able to get into those ports.
Mm-hmm. And the stabilizers, can you share also, because people are impressed by this as well, to the oversized stabilizers? I mean, if we were to compare this to one of the larger ocean vessels, you know, like an Oasis class with Royal Caribbean, like what would that comparison look like?
Well, for one, our stabilizers, which is a world's first, is a 0-speed stabilizer. So your stabilizers normally unfold from the ship, and it's kind of like you treading water in a way. And so they're designed to counteract swell and surf. But what's unique about Eclipse is most stabilizers on ships are just fixed. They're just there. Well, here with Eclipse, and you'll see in a video, that they're what we call 0-speed stabilizers. So when the ship is stationary and you have winds and swell and currents pushing on the ship, she can still rock back and forth on the ship. I apologize, my dog is barking. And so with that and the 0-speed stabilizer, she will hold steady. And you'll see in the video, the gangway itself is not moving, which allows for a very safe Zodiac transfer of guests on and off the ship. So let's show that video.
Great.
So you can see
Kind of
there,
exactly what you said. Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're in the South Pacific. We had good swell and currents pushing on the ship, but the stabilizers were still working while we're stationary, which kept the gangway still, which, like I said, allows for that safe for the guest to get on and off the Zodiac from the ship, which was the world's first, having the 0-speed stabilizers.
That's impressive. Very impressive. Get to this next slide. Here we go. You can talk a little bit more about dynamic positioning system with this. You there, Jason?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry,
Oh, okay. That's okay.
I don't see any slides. Sorry.
Oh, you don't? Let me see.
No.
Oh, for some reason, it went back to a different view. What happened here?
Hey, Richard, there you go.
Okay.
There
Okay,
you
you
go.
got it back. This is
You're back
Joni. I just
on.
want to make sure you
There we
got it
go.
back. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you,
All right,
Jenny.
I'll mute myself again.
So with the dynamic positioning system, this was a game changer for expedition ships, and she was purposely built. Now, the technology has been around, but never on an expedition ship. And a couple things. One, with the dynamic positioning, it's GPS controlled, and it allows us where we never have to drop an anchor. And because basically, when the captain gets us into the proper position, with the windward, leeward side for our operation, gets us right where he wants it. Literally, he pushes a button and then the ship just stays. It just holds its position, its angle of attack and everything, where it allows us, because of our dynamic positioning, we've gone to places that no other company or no other ship can actually go to. We're able to go to coral reef systems where we're able to protect the coral reef. So because we don't have to drop an anchor at all. And so countries have allowed us to go to locations, for instance, in the Red Sea, in the Australian Great Barrier Reef, that no other ship was ever allowed to go to because of our dynamic positioning, because we're protecting the ocean floor and the wildlife down below. And that's part of our sustainability. So with dynamic positioning, literally, it allows our operation to be very effective and efficient, whereas other operators, when you drop an anchor, you get the ship in position, you drop an anchor. The problem is, as the winds change, the current changes and everything, the ship starts spinning on an anchor and you spin around, which then your operational side, where Zodiacs pick up guests and drop them off on a gangway, gets into the windward side and it becomes hazardous. So the captain has to stop operations, lift the anchor, spin the ship around to the right position, drop an anchor again, and then start the operation again. And that wastes time. And in Antarctica, time is everything, that we'll talk about in a second. So for us, if the captain has to change position, the beautiful thing is, in dynamic positioning, he can incrementally do it slowly and smoothly, so we never stop operation. So the guests, the Zodiac drivers, no one even knows the captain is spinning the ship slightly to create more lee on the operational side of the ship.
Wow. So if for our audience, I mean, I think you're picking up on this. I mean, really, you know, your guests when they experience these regions with Scenic Eclipse, I mean, they're going to be able to see more, experience more, just because the more time, and it's going to be done in an eco-friendly way on top of that. So I mean, that's a lot to be able to share with them. Some of these places are once in a lifetime visits, and to be able to experience it this way is going to be a whole new level for them.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that also, Jason. Right. Let's see, I think we have something on. So exploring the polar regions, a taste for size absolutely does matter, not necessarily being the largest in this case, because the you know, very intimate ships, 228 guests maximum in the non-polar regions, only 200 in Antarctica and the high Arctic. So very intimate overall on board. And then when you couple that with some things we're going to share a little bit later in the presentation, just in terms of like onboard, you know, amenities and public space and things like that, I think you're going to be wowed even further. But if you could share a little bit more on this also. And then the question that I'd like to ask you the last time too, especially in the polar regions, There are some people like my wife who's it would really take some talking into for her to be able to go to a cold destination like this. But I've heard a number of people say that, and then when they go and experience it, they're talking about it being one of the best trips of their life. But love for you to share a little bit on that as well.
So, when we are in the polar regions, whether it's Antarctica or the Arctic, because of our efficiency and our technology and capabilities, we do normally 2 different excursions a day, where we'll do a morning excursion and then we'll do an afternoon excursion in a different location. An excursion can be a zodiac cruise, it could be a landing on shore, it could be kayaking, paddleboarding, submersible dives, helicopter flights. It could be everything all at once at the same time. And so for the guests, especially guests, not only for me, I live in the desert in Arizona, that, I don't do cold very well. So the beautiful thing is going to the polar regions. One, you have to remember it's down in Antarctica. We only go during their summer down there. So it's our winter, their summer. So the temperature and the climate is pretty mild, to be honest with you. We're talking anywhere from 36 to 40, 45 degrees Fahrenheit down there, where I've been down there where it was in the 60s before in t-shirt weather. Granted, yes, it does snow, but it also rains down there. That's part of the climate change, what's happening down in the air in Antarctica. But always remember that going out on an excursion, when you're out there for an hour to 2 hours, you're always going to come back to a beautiful, warm ship. And because of that, it's worth just being out and about in the elements and exploring and experiencing the wildlife. Because especially down in Antarctica, you have to remember it's the world's largest wildlife refuge. So animals are not hunted down there. Not like the Arctic, where the Arctic animals are hunted, so they do have a fear of humans. In Antarctica, the penguins, the seals, the whales don't know what a human is, so they're curious and they'll come up to you. The penguins will come right up to you. The whales will come right up to a zodiac out of curiosity. And that kind of interaction is the only place in the world where you can have those kind of interactions. And whether, like I said, by paddleboard, kayaks, just having that and having a penguin jump on your paddleboard for a hitchhiking ride is like no other. And we've had seals jump up on paddleboards before to rest. Those kind of experiences you'll get nowhere else in the world itself.
Well, and maybe you could talk on this too, because I know we're seeing the paddleboarders right now also, but with going down to Lake Arctica, there's, I think it's a maximum of 200 guests that can go down at a time, but only 100, or rather 100 that can go on land, right? So what does that scenario look like when, one of the groups is going out and the other group is kind of doing some other things?
Yep. So in Antarctica, one of the regulations is no more than 100 people at one time on shore. And that's why we limit to 200 guests on board in the polar regions, so that we can do an easy rotation 100 at a time. But I can tell you, we have so many other options happening simultaneously that I mentioned that we've never had 100 people on shore. It's usually 70 to 80 people, because other people are kayaking, paddleboarding, in the submersible, on the helicopters, and so on. So with that, it gives people more time on shore. And as I mentioned, that with 200 guests and our efficiency, and you'll see it, I think we have that Zodiac garage video also, that we became so efficient in our operation that I can get all 12 Zodiacs out of the garage. The moment the captain pushes dynamic positioning, 12 Zodiacs off the ship, both helicopters are already flying on flight seeing. The submersible is heading to its dive site. The kayaks and paddle boards are off to their paddling areas. The discovery team is on shore setting up the shore already, and I can do this all in 15, 20 minutes max. So our guests are actually leaving the ship from the time the captain pushes dynamic positioning in 30 minutes, automatic. And because of that, in Antarctica, where a ship is allowed to be in one place for 5.5 hours, that may sound like a lot, but other operators that I've worked with takes anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half before guests can actually leave the ship. So if you take that hour and a half, that's an hour and a half to get everything off the ship, get the shore set up, but then you have to bring everything back. That's another hour and a half. That's 3 hours gone out of that 2.5 hours. So there alone, or out of that 5.5. So you only have 2.5 hours left. So you really are only getting an hour to an hour and 15 minutes on shore. Where on Scenic, not only are you going to multiple sites a day, you're getting 2 hours or more time on shore on these excursions because we're so efficient in our operation. It takes literally a half hour you're leaving the ship because everything is off the ship in 15, 20 minutes. But now it takes us about 25 to 30 minutes to get everything back on board because we do give everything a freshwater rinse. So it just takes a little bit longer to hose it all down, but still it's not affecting the guest experience to have that maximum time out there.
Well, yeah, again, one of the things that sets us apart too, more time to
Yes.
experience and see all these things. We're going to share a short little helicopter video, and then when we get through that, Jason, maybe you could share a few words on this as well, but let's click over to that real quick.
So our
That is such a cool
helicopters,
shot.
it is, and I love that taking off down in Antarctica. A couple things about the helicopters. One, if you notice, it started getting very quiet just as it left the ship. We spent an extra $1 million per helicopter to make them ultra quiet. And the reason why we did that is one, we don't want to disturb the wildlife when we're taking off and landing back on the ship when we're at the lowest altitude. Two, we don't want to disturb the guest experience on the ship and on shore as well. So you notice once the helicopter's leaving or just before her approach to the ship is when you'll start hearing it. After that, it's silent. And we purposely did that so we're not disturbing the guest or the wildlife itself. Plus, our H-130 Airbus helicopters are the best viewing platform helicopters out there, designed specifically for flight seeing, and you can see all the window space compared to other helicopters. And the helicopters our competitors use, actually guests sit forwards and backwards. So you're actually looking at each other, not having that great forward view of what's going on there, where these helicopters are meant specifically for this.
Well, some great experiences too. And what I always tell people also is that, the fact that we were the first ones to have this type of technology, allowing you and the team to work with this and really getting to understand it and how it can really enhance the overall guest experience and even beyond that. These are the things that truly make us unrivaled. I think it's a fair statement to say that at this point in time, no one is hitting all the marks that we are. I understand some folks are adding and building out their technology. Would you say it's safe to say that, clearly nobody is doing some of the things that we're doing at this time?
No, when we initially launched Eclipse, everyone thought we were going to fail. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect when I took over Eclipse in the shipyard and I was her first discovery leader, because no other ship has ever had helicopters, submersibles, kayak, paddleboard, Zodiacs, and everything. It's never been done before, and there's no playbook. And literally, I had to figure it out. I had 10 days to figure it out from the time we left the shipyard in Croatia to the time we got to Iceland to pick up our first guests on the maiden voyage, of how do you do this? Because no one's ever done it. So all our competitors were thinking, oh, it's impossible, that they're going to fail, let them fail. And then when we did it, at the end of the day, and we launched everything all at once, and we got everything back, and we were in Greenland when we did it, and it was like, holy cow, we did this. Now what? We literally pioneered and changed the paradigm of polar exploration. And when all our competitors realized, oh crud, they did it, now we got to build ships to do what they did. No other ship has built with helicopters and submersibles. Either they built it for just helicopters or just submersibles. But like you said, we're still the only operator out there in the world next to private yachts that have both submersible and helicopters.
Right.
And here you see another world's first. We had on Eclipse 1, this is Scenic Neptune 1. It's a world's first commercial submersible. We were the first to have it. Other ships copied us and bought the same vehicle afterward. But it's a 7-seater, 3 guests on each side. Pilot is in the middle. And then the next slide is our newest submersible, which is on Scenic Eclipse 2. And this one, we had a upper hand in the design of this. I was part of the design with Triton, who designed this one. As you see here, once again, it's another world's first where it's a single sphere. So it's arena sitting where all the guests have the same view. And you can see here when we were working on the design, the manufacturing of the submersible and everything, and now she's launched on Eclipse 2. She already has over a year, over a couple hundred dives in her, and just an amazing platform for seeing what's below the surface of the water.
Mm. That is fantastic. And
real quick.
Yeah, no,
so
please go.
With this slide, I'd like to show this one because we get guests that ask, well, I'm claustrophobic, can I handle this? And this slide shows you when you're inside the sphere, the bubble, it disappears, as you can see. So you can see from the scuba diver taking this shot in the center shot where you can kind of see the haze of the sphere, but from the inside, you don't see it. So it just looks like you're wide open space. So we've never had an issue with anyone who had claustrophobia or slight claustrophobia have an issue with the submersible. And to be honest with you, only one person in the history of Scenic, I should say, the last 6 years having submersibles, we've had one person get in and get out, and that was actually a crew member that did that, never a guest.
Really?
Jumped out.
Wow.
Yeah, jumped out. So
that is great. That's huge. That's huge. This next video is going to be the Zodiac that you were talking about too. So I'm going to share that video, and then maybe you could talk a little bit,
yeah.
Or if you want to cue it up first, would you like to do that first?
Sure. So in this video, it's our Zodiac Garage, another world's first. We're the first ship to build a Zodiac Garage. And the difference is every other ship, every other operator, their Zodiacs are out on outer decks, up on upper decks, and so on. So literally they have a long craning process to get one Zodiac at a time off the ship, which, like I mentioned, Antarctica takes time. And this is what takes time away from the guest experience, doing it one at a time. Plus, the Zodiac drivers have to be in another Zodiac, and as each Zodiac comes down, transfers from one boat to another, which takes time. Here on Eclipse, it's climate controlled, so we can maintain the Zodiacs in a climate area. But you'll notice in the back corner, the Zodiac drivers, literally, the garage is a meter off the water. So once the boat is in the water, Zodiac drivers steps in the boat and away they go. And this helps our efficiency of getting Zodiacs on and off the ship. Now, I know one other operator built a Zodiac garage, but for some reason they built the garage 2 meters off the water. So drivers still have to get craned into the Zodiac itself because it's too high, versus ours is right near the water's edge. So go ahead with the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. That's it. Now, what's amazing is when I got to the shipyard, all the Zodiacs were still in the water because the garage itself wasn't handed over to us. We got the garage when we initially launched the Eclipse the day before she was set to sail. So I'm in there, all the Zodiacs are in the water, and then we had to figure out, well, how are we going to do this? So it took us almost 4 hours just to get 6 Zodiacs into the garage and figure out how you'd lay them out. And then it's like, okay, we still have 6 more to get on board. So it took us nearly 6 hours just to get 12 Zodiacs into the garage. And once we did that, then I said, all right, now we got to figure out how to get it off the ship. And that took over an hour to get each Zodiac off the ship. So in the infancy on day 1, that took us nearly 6 hours to get them all on board and over an hour to get them off the ship. Now we do it all in 15 minutes. So you can see how we've really learned and dialed in our operation.
Wow. That's great. Thanks for sharing that also, because all those things, again, make a gigantic difference for the guest experience. I know that you have probably a better overview, even than what we're looking at on this slide, but a question that gets asked often is, when is the best time to see certain wildlife in the area?
Yep. So, and I always like to throw this back at the agents and everybody. It's basically, you need to ask the guests, what do you want to see? If you want to see penguin chicks, then the best time to go to see, whether it's the brush-tailed penguins, the chinstraps, adelies, or gentoos, laying eggs and baby chicks, then the best time to see the babies is around November, December timeframe. To see emperor penguins, whether it's on the peninsula at Snow Hill or in East Antarctica, the best time to go is October, November to very early December before Christmas time, because emperor penguins only nest on sea ice. They don't go to land. So once the sea ice starts breaking up around them, then the colony disperse and they stay out to sea for about 8 months. So you don't see them on the peninsula. But in East Antarctica, you'll see them more often there. If you want to see seals, elephant seals, fur seals being born on the beaches in South Georgia, then you definitely want to go October, November timeframe, because come December, the babies tend to start going out to sea. You'll still see seals all the time. You just won't see the babies on shore. Whales migrate, so you'll start seeing whales in November timeframe, but the sweet spot to see whales is around end of November to beginning of February. That's when most of the migration south is done, and that's their feeding grounds in Antarctica. But one thing I just want to stress is, keep in mind, Antarctica only has 4 indigenous species. It has the Adelie penguin, the emperor penguin, the Weddell seal, and the Ross sea seal. Those are the only 4 indigenous species to Antarctica. Everything else is migratory. The birds, the whales, the other seals, all the other penguins migrate to Antarctica and migrate away during its winter. So in East Antarctica, you're going to see only those 4 species. You will see a lot of whales in East Antarctica because, like I said, they do migrate, and there's a lot of blue whales down there. But you're going to see a plethora of the indigenous species, and you'll see a lot of Ross sea orcas over there. On the peninsula, you'll see a plethora of multitude of species of animals down there on the peninsula. But you'll see, like I said, in East Antarctica, you won't see the whole diversity of penguins and seals, but you will see a large amount of the indigenous species of emperor penguins and adelies and so on down there. Now, if you want to see both penguin chicks and whales, the sweet spot is really around December, Christmas time, or early December to mid-January is the sweet spot for seeing penguin chicks and all the whales at the same time.
Excellent overview, and I hope everybody was taking some good notes on that. I'm wanting to be mindful of everybody's time too. We're gonna have to probably push through some of these a little bit quicker, but The stories are fantastic. All the information is great. Packing guide, dressing layered, right? What would your advice be on packing, Jason?
Well, we do send packing guides for our guests and everything, but a couple things you always want to make sure you have is eyeglass holders, straps, whether it's for eyeglasses or sunglasses, because on a Zodiac, the wind will definitely blow them off your face. So you always want to have eyeglass holders. If you use ski goggles, make sure you get ski goggles that can fit over glasses themselves. We do provide a polar parka that's for the guests as a gift. And then we do provide muck boots to use when on the ship in polar regions. Otherwise, base layers, mid layers, and all those warm layers the guests need to provide. Plus a small
Fantastic.
backpack.
Great, great, great. So now we're going to get into a few of the more specifics of Antarctica, and I know you've given us some really great photos of a number of things that you've taken also, Jason, but I'll just kind of push through and you just please walk us through and talk us through some of these.
Yep, so real quick, our different itineraries, our 13-day itinerary is, keep in mind, it's actually 11 days on the ship. 2 of those days is from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia travel time on there. So it's 11 days on the ship. And because of Eclipse's speed, stability crossing the Drake Passage, this map doesn't quite do it justice, because in 11 days we can actually get to the Antarctic Sound, which is the tip of the peninsula, plus do all the classic stuff in those 11 days. Or there's even times when we go south of the circle and then back up and do the classic stuff. And it's because we can.
Great.
South Georgia, I highly, highly recommend anyone who loves birds, want to be part of the king penguin colonies of literally over 200,000 nesting pairs, which would be over 500,000 birds in their colony, as you see here, because of the chicks and the nesting pairs and juveniles who are not mating yet. So in the colonies of literally 500,000 of the penguins, you can be amongst, and it's just an amazing experience on South Georgia. Plus, South Georgia has a history of Shackleton, incredible historic history, and the wildlife, the birds, the geology and topography is just stunning of South Georgia and the Falkland Islands, on top of going to the peninsula.
So educational, so much to learn by visiting this area here. Let's see. Here we go. We have another one. I get the right one. So East Antarctica voyages.
So East Antarctica is very unique. It is long itineraries, because keep in mind, we can cross the Drake Passage in a day and a half, but to get to East Antarctica, it literally takes 5-6 days, because it's just far. So the trips are longer. They're 23, 24 days. But if you are a true explorer, you want to be in the remotest places on Earth, East Antarctica is the place to be, because one, we do go visit all the historical huts where Shackleton, Scott, Mawson had, their jump off points from 110, 120 years ago. And we go visit those huts as they were when those great explorers were there. Here, this background picture is the Ross Ice Shelf, which is the largest ice shelf in the world. And we just had a beautiful calm day to be able to paddleboard around the ice shelf. We also go to the inland dry valleys, which is a place that has not seen precipitation in over 1 million years, that you can only get there by helicopter. To get to Mawson's hut, you can only get there by helicopter. So even though other operators go there, they don't have the helicopters to get you to where we can get you to. So the experience is far greater. But truly, for those who want to walk in the footsteps of those great explorers, East Antarctica is the place to be.
Wow. And forgive me if I'm sharing this next video out of term, but Snow Hill Island, I'm share this video, and then we'll come back and you can share a little bit more on this for us also.
Sure. So Snow Hill, which is on the peninsula, the only way to get there is by helicopter, once again, to safely fly and land away from the colony. And keep in mind that guests do have to walk a kilometer each way. We cannot land within a kilometer of the colony. So depending where we find a safe landing site, the guests will have to have mobility to walk on sea ice for a kilometer, kilometer and a half each way to get to the colony itself. Here in East Antarctica, like I talked about, the first one we do is Mawson's Hut. And Mawson was a great explorer. He did not want to go to the South Pole. He was a scientist and he made many discoveries along Eastern. He was an Australian scientist, so Eastern Antarctica is where he's done many of his explorations. And he spent years in this hut that you see here doing his science, wintering over and doing the science that he did. And we get to go inside the hut. Here at Mawson's, the last time anyone had visited the hut was 9 years ago. And the scientist, you see, he opened the door and that's what we saw was a block of ice in there because the last time he was there with his team was 9 years. So we brought them along. So it took us 2 hours with chainsaws and axes to chop through the ice to get inside the hut itself so our guests can get inside there, which was
Wow.
pretty awesome. Yeah, pretty cool, you know, to do that because he had no idea what to expect when we got out there as well, too.
Wow.
Like I said, you can only get there by helicopter to get to Mawson's Hut. Now, I know some operators are offering Mawson's Hut trips this coming season, and I can guarantee you they're not going to get there because the sea ice was frozen 20 kilometers away from land. And without a helicopter, they're not going to get to the hut itself, where we'll be flying back and forth, all our guests, for 2-3 days, because you're only allowed 4 people at a time in the hut. So doing it in groups of 4 takes time. So we usually spend 2-3 days shuttling guests back and forth to the hut itself. And from the landing pad, it's slightly downhill, so we're chopping steps. Here, which was really cool, was that the scientists had no idea what to expect and expected snow drifts up to the hut itself, but because there were not, due to climate change, there was more snow and ice melt, that this was the first time they saw these historical artifacts. So they cataloged them, never seen before, and everything out there around the hut is historical artifacts. So pretty cool that the first time they actually saw these as well, too. And this is just quickly inside Mawson's hut. So you can see 1912. Everything in the historical huts, and you can keep flipping through because I know time, are not staged as it was left. So when they left, the food, the magazines, everything is as is. We also visit the Mertz Glacier Tongue, and a quick difference, a glacier tongue, where we're used to glaciers when they get to the water's edge calve off of the when they reach the water, but here East Antarctica is so cold that the glacier doesn't calve off, it just keeps running along the surface of the water itself. And then this is here over at Mawson's, where we're actually, we had Australian scientists on board to do the health studies of the Adelie penguins that has a couple colonies around the hut. So here's the colonies on their nesting, their babies. And then, like I mentioned, you'll see emperor penguins around. You'll see the Ross Sea orcas as well there. And of course, a lot of the birds, migratory birds. And then our other 2 voyages are down to the Ross Sea, where we actually go visit Scott's hut, Shackleton's hut, and seeing all the wildlife in that area as well, too. So pretty, this voyage, if you really want to walk in the footsteps of those great explorers of Scott, Shackleton, and everybody, this is that voyage to go on. This is where the inland dry valleys are. This is where the Ross Ice Shelf is. That's Mount Erebus in the background, which is the most active volcano in Antarctica, and she does erupt pretty often, which is pretty cool to see her billowing smoke in the background there. And then going to Cape Evans to Scott's Hut, you can see the aerial view. I was on the helicopter to scout a path because there was a lot of ice in the bay. So I was basically scouting a path for the ship to get to Cape Evans so that we can Zodiac our guests to the beach. And this is just the landing to Scott's Hut with Mount Erebus in the background. And then these next few slides are all of inside the hut itself. And like I said, nothing is staged, everything as is. This is where Scott slept, the science that was being done with the Emperor Penguin from back in 1910. They had dogs and ponies on that expedition. This is the dog handlers bunk area where he had, so all the photographs are left as is. This is the inland dry valleys. As I mentioned, has not seen precipitation in a million years. So just an incredible place. This is where NASA and science goes to study, because it's the geology that you see down to the bedrock is over 2 billion years old. This is also where they discover a lot of meteorites that have hit the earth. These two seals are over 20,000 years old. They guesstimate, they have no idea how they got so far into the valley, but because it's so cold and dry, everything mummifies down there. And so you'd see them. And then of course, like I mentioned, the indigenous wildlife as often as possible. And then lastly, to wrap up my part, truly on Scenic Eclipse, in a single day, it's the only platform where you can explore from above in the helicopter, in the submersible, under the water, on the water by kayak, paddleboard, Zodiacs, on land. In one day, you can do all of that, not to mention just on an entire voyage. And we do have guests that fly multiple times. We do not charge for kayaks and paddleboarding like other operators do, so you can do that as many times as you'd like as well too. The only thing we actually charge, because Eclipse is all inclusive, is for the helicopter and submersible, because it does cost me a lot of money to run those. And then the spa is free, but spa treatments, massages, and so on, there's a slight charge for that. But truly all inclusive, only on Scenic Eclipse can you explore literally a 4-dimensional world.
That was some great information. Jason, thank you so much for that. I know we really kind of run up against the time. I'm going to encourage anybody that can stick around another 5-10 minutes longer at the most to please do so. We've got some other information that we want to share. And then a closing video directly from Jason too. So hopefully you'll stick around to hear that. But thank you, Jason. We're just going to cover a couple of other things really quick here. Jason touched upon this also, but like we said earlier, the ships were built for expedition, but we really circumnavigate the globe to a number of different places. One thing that's really unique is that, where we may have gone one place 1 year between those polar regions, we may not be going there the next year. The nice thing with that is that it keeps people guessing a little bit. It keeps our product in demand, and we're able to explore different places around the globe also. So you want to make sure you're looking at our cruise calendar for those different locations that your guests are interested in. I want to also turn this over to David for a moment. David, if you're with us, to talk a little bit about the voyage modes, because this is the part that I think people may not completely understand, and how there's different ways in which we cruise with Scenic Eclipse vessels.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thanks again to Jason for giving such a good overview of what it means to do one of our voyage modes, which is the expedition yacht voyages. So expedition, as we saw, has a lot to do with being an explorer in that sense, doing like the expedition destination in itself, where you have very specific programming on board, very much in the sense of the discovery team that's going to be accompanying you throughout the voyage. The other two voyage modes really kind of are a hybrid of that. So with the discovery yacht voyages, this is going to be a little bit of normal cruising and then expedition. So the best kind of example is when we go to Australia, where it's not really the Arctic, it's not cold, but yet you're still having the sense of expedition, because you're going to really remote areas. You still have a discovery team on board that's going to accompany you on some of the excursions. You'll be taking the Zodiacs. We have the helicopters as well. So think of the discovery mode as expedition light, and in some of the more far-reached corners of the world that are not necessarily Arctic and Antarctica. And then signature yacht voyages, this is what we refer to as really our normal cruising. And kind of like when you think about taking a yacht in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean, this is our signature yacht voyages. What's really great about this one too is that we kind of blend some of our river experiences with our scenic and rich events that are going to be available and really exclusive to each of those cruises on one of the signature yacht voyages. I just got back from Eclipse and on one of the signature yacht voyages in the Med from Barcelona to Monte Carlo, and we actually debuted the marina. So while we weren't kayaking next to penguins, we did kayak with the French Riviera as a backdrop. So really beautiful to have the Eclipse as your private yacht as you're sailing through the Mediterranean.
And as you said the last time, David, you didn't do the polar plunge, but you got to do the warm med plunge, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I traded in the polar plunge for the med plunge.
That's right. So, we talked a lot about some of the destinations. We really dove into Antarctica in particular and really just how Scenic Eclipse operates in those waters. But just to talk really briefly, just about the Scenic Eclipse experience on board. I mean, a number of amenities. When we say all-inclusive, we truly mean all-inclusive. Aside from services of getting a massage or the heli or excursions, everything else is pretty much included, from our whiskey bar, which when I was on board, we asked, and at that time they said there were over 160 different whiskeys at the beautiful whiskey bar, to some amazing wines and beers, great culinary that you're going to be able to experience also. Tips are all included for your onboard staff as well, your offshore tour guides. We include transfers. We have comp Wi-Fi. So it truly is an all-inclusive experience. And of course, that amazing discovery team with Jason leading that. There's some other themed departures that we have also. I may have been jumping ahead with that also, but I just want to share, this is a spa that we're looking at. So if you've ever kind of wondered, what we include, everything that you would want with that, from a cold plunge to the salted beds to the infrared chairs that you could sit in for some therapy. All those things are included there. There's a steam room. We got a hot rock steam room. In terms of the suites start at 345 square feet, all veranda suites. So you have your nice balcony area. You have a beautiful sitting area, of course, a beautiful bedding area, your bathroom, plenty of place to unpack, put your luggage away, and just a really spacious area to enjoy. Beautiful aesthetics. And then the largest stateroom is going to be our owner's penthouse suite. That is 2,099 square feet too. So again, when we talk about space and being able to spread out, it really qualifies with our owner's penthouse suite. In terms of, let me get to the next slide here, culinary. If you can imagine, with maximum 200 guests when you're in the polar regions, 228 when you're not in the polar regions. But in addition to in-room dining, we also have 9 restaurants on board. So everything from Asian cuisine, French, Italian, a number of other things. If you're just feeling like a burger or pizza or sandwich, all these things are included for you as well too. If that's not enough, the menu will change out in a number of those restaurants every 3 days. Our VP of hotel operations, Tom Getter, he was actually on Top Chef in Germany. He placed number 3 out of, I think it was 300 contestants. He was on International Top Chef, trained under Thomas Keller. He's put some amazing meals together, and you're going to get a chance to experience him on board Scenic Eclipse. And then let me go back just a bit here. In kind of closing on that part, we're going to share a short little video. You're going to hear Jason talk, and then I'm going to go over a couple of final things, and we'll go ahead and close this up for you. I want to thank everybody for sticking around with us.
Experiencing Antarctica 102 times, many guests and many people always ask me, what is it that keeps bringing you back? I get the experience of seeing it through the guests' eyes firsthand and seeing the expressions on their face and the uniqueness on board Scenic Eclipse with all the experiences that we can provide: kayaking, paddleboarding, zodiacs, helicopters, submersibles, are kind of like grown-up toys, and it teaches us how to be kids again. The other thing that truly makes it unique is Antarctica's a place to experience the physical. I'll guarantee you, you'll never be able to explain that physical to somebody who's never been to Antarctica because it's an emotional state of mind.
Wow, those chicks are beautiful.
So it may appear when you go there as a bucket list, but when you get there and when you experience the emotions of Antarctica, what it brings out of you, and when you leave Antarctica, it's the story of the lifetime that you'll forever remember.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to get my screen back up here right now. It doesn't seem to be working for me, but hopefully you enjoyed that video and everything that we've had to share also. Jody, I'm not sure if you can maybe assist me in getting my screen back up here right now. But again, Jason, if you're there, maybe you can share just a few closing comments in addition to what you shared on the video with us.
Yep. You know, whether we're talking about Antarctica or anywhere in the world, truly having such a luxury ship to come back to after a full day of excursions is like no other, right? We're able to match the ultra luxury of the ship on our excursions as well too, and truly it becomes stories of a lifetime for guests. And I highly recommend, you know, it's the only place in the world you can truly explore the polar regions on Eclipse like no other.
Like no other. That's right too. So again, I hope everybody got some really good information from this also. I know I'm not able to jump back into the presentation, but David, if you don't mind, even just ever so briefly, just sharing a little bit, because one of the things we did want to talk about were the themed departures. And we've got between river actually and ocean, we've got some really great themed departures. If you could share a bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our theme voyages really take on a kind of a life of their own. So we focus on some of the things that we do really well, which is culinary, but then trying to mix some things up this year. So right off the bat, we have our first Words of Discovery, which is going to be a lecture series. We've partnered with a historian and award-winning author, Dr. Robert Watson, who will be accompanying 2 voyages on river cruises this summer. It's going to be lecture-based, and he's going to be talking more in depth about where we're traveling, and he'll be there with a couple of lectures and being able to accompany some of the tours that are going on during that cruise. We also have 2 Tapes of Discoveries, one with Brian Voltaggio, who is actually on his 4th voyage with us. So we're really excited to welcome him back. He's going to be going on Scenic Eclipse in July as well. And this is going to be circumnavigating Iceland and crossing the Arctic Circle. So I will have to get back to all of you to see if he's going to do the polar plunge up there, or if he's going to be saying he has to just be in the kitchen, but we'll see. And then our second Taste of the Discovery this year is down in South America with Chef Luciana Berry. She's going to be accompanied by Chef Tom as well. And this is going to be a really exciting voyage, and it's one of our signature yacht modes, where we're going to go from Rio de Janeiro to Buenos Aires. Chef Luciana Berry is actually Brazilian, so she's going to be bringing her own flavor and flair to this really exciting destination cruise. So those are just a couple of the theme voyages we have. And if you have any questions, then ask Richard, and we're happy to share more details and flyers on those really exciting cruises.
Thank you so much, David. And listen, now to get to officially close, and also just want to thank everybody, first of all, or once again, for taking the time to join us and sticking around a little bit longer. Hopefully you're able to get some of those downloads of the handouts, some really great information, especially the current offers. This is Travel Advisor Appreciation Month, so there's some great things you don't want to miss, in addition to all of our other great offers there as well. There's also a fantastic resource guide that has everything that you will need in understanding both Scenic and Emerald. And Jason, of course, I want to thank you once again. It's a privilege to be able to host a webinar with you. And yeah, I learned a little something more each and every time also, and it's just been a real pleasure. So with that, I just want to, yeah, thank you. Anything else final before you officially close here, Jason?
Nope. Just, I can't wait to see everybody on board.
Hey, gentlemen, this is
That's right.
Joni. Hey, how are you? It
Hey,
was
Jim. Yeah.
amazing, you guys. Oh my God. So awesome. I feel like I've been at it's a wonderful event just now watching all of this. Hey, I'm unable to help you with that, Richard, because you still have control over the presenters. So I can't show your PowerPoint because I don't actually have that. Otherwise, I would log back into that. So I apologize. Whatever you were doing before to pull it back, that was working, but I'm not sure why that wouldn't be working now. So I'm sorry for that. I just
That's
want
okay.
to thank all of you so much for this amazing presentation. I mean, the comments that have been coming through on the questions panel have been just everybody's just flabbergasted. It was absolutely like seeing a wonderful, wonderful movie and wishing that we were there for sure. So I know that your contact information is probably something that you want to share. Is that on those handouts that everybody had access to?
There is. There's actually what we call an RSD slide, so Regional Sales Director slide, but it actually has our entire sales team. So you
Okay.
can find who your local regional sales director is. There's also our sales account executives. They're basically, that would be Margaret and Ian behind the scenes who make everything happen for us, honestly, when we're on the road and jumping all over the place. So you want to take their contact information down as well, too. But yes, that is in one of the handouts as well, the resource guide.
Okay, I just want to make sure they could get to that since we're not able to see your screen right now. All right, well, I think that what might have happened is it might have timed out because went over the time frame. So that's the only thing I can
Oh,
imagine
got it.
happened there. That's a possibility. But I can't thank you all enough. And I hope everybody on this webinar, all of you advisors, will please, please, please make sure that you've downloaded those documents that we mentioned that were over on that side of the screen, and just make sure that you contact Scenic Emerald when you're thinking about making your bookings moving forward. Also, could you maybe share with us, either David, Richard, or about the promotion? You guys were going to do some prize giveaways, but we weren't going to do it during the session. If you wanted to just mention that, Richard.
Yeah, there's actually a couple different e-gift cards that we'll be handing out also. So 100, 250, and a $500 e-gift card that we're going to be doing as a random handout too for everybody that joined us. There is an opportunity for you to win. So we will follow up on
Perfect.
that.
Okay.
And then, of course, the handouts that you mentioned also, just to be aware of that.
Okay, I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. So they will have all of your contact information for all the advisors on here. And just one last thing that I did want to tell everybody, we did record this entire event. So you will be getting an email from me tomorrow afternoon about this same time, which will include all the video links so that you can go ahead and watch this over again and just enjoy it one more time before you actually book yourself and go on your vacation.
Fantastic. Joni, thank you for all your support as well. We really appreciate you also.
Of course, our pleasure. Thank you all. Everyone have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
your day. Let's go to Antarctica.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.